listen. One day, Baldy's teacher asked to see him after class. "I'd like to have a little talk with you, Theobald. Alone," she said. "Please stay after school." Baldy was frightened. He thought he knew what was coming. He thought he'd been found out. Baldy hadn't been naughty, not in the usual way. He hadn't punched some little boy in the nose. He hadn't eaten candy during class, nor had he made fun of his teacher or been up to any of the usual tricks. No, Baldy was up to something very unusual. Very unusual indeed. "What did old Fuss Budget say to you?" asked Ed Conley. "Are you in the doghouse?" "I don't know," answered Baldy. "She just wants to see me." "I bet I know. I bet you're going to get promoted." "Why? Why do you think so?" "Ah, I can tell. Any fellow who gets 100 in all his exams ought to be in the next class. I bet that's what it is." Baldy shook his head. "Sure it is. But say, Baldy, how do you do it? You were always dumb until lately. What do? Copy your stuff? How do you get such good marks?" "I won't tell anybody. Cross my heart." "Come on, spill it." I just talk dumb," answered Baldy. "I can write much better than I can talk." "Ah, don't give me that line. I know you're dumb. Why, you can't even remember the password." "Leave me alone," Baldy blurted. It's none of your business." Baldy wasn't a thinker. His tongue was thick, his mind was slow, but his pen flew over a sheet of paper as if it were enchanted. The ink seemed to flow in a steady stream of inspired words. It was magic ink from a magic bottle, and with it Baldy was able to outstrip all his classmates, to write the best English compositions in the school, to add and multiply numbers like lightning. "Miss Fitch, do you mind if I do my math problems in ink instead of pencil?" "We prefer you to use pencil because you can erase and correct your mistakes." "But I won't make mistakes, Miss Fitch." He never did. The magic ink was infallible. Baldy had found this bottle of ink one day in the attic of his house, hidden among the cobwebs and dusty beams under the attic ceiling. He opened it and put his finger in to see if it was full. When he drew his finger out, it was covered with blue-black ink. He wiped it off on the ceiling and found to his surprise that he was writing some figures, a number, 192. He didn't think much of it, brought the bottle downstairs to his room, washed his hands, and forgot all about the incident, until the next day in class, when Miss Fitch gave them all a problem to do. A problem so complicated that Baldy gave up from the start. He just couldn't work it out. So he fiddled and wiggled around in his seat while the other children added long columns of figures and made notations on their papers and carried numbers over to the next sheet. Suddenly Miss Fitch called out, "Theobald, what is the answer?" Baldy stuttered and mumbled, and Miss Fitch had her pencil poised to give him 0 for the day, when he decided to just say any number that came into his head. The number he thought of was 192. The number he'd written on the ceiling of the old attic room. 192. "That is correct," said the astonished Miss Fitch. "Are you sure you didn't read the answer off someone else's paper?" "He couldn't have, Miss Fitch. We didn't have it right," said the other fellows. "Very good, Theobald. Excellent. I hope that you'll continue to be so keen. I had been rather worried about your grades." From that moment forth, Baldy used the magic ink and won the highest honors. And Miss Fitch called him to say that he'd been chosen to represent his school in a statewide short story contest. He had a week to write the story, he'd be excused from other homework, and the first prize was $50. $50, thought Baldy as he walked out on air. I could buy that bike Gus showed me with the gears and everything. I can't lose. My magic ink is a cinch to win for me. So he stopped at Gus's shop and said he'd buy the bicycle. "Can I take it with me now?" How about the $50? I promise you'll have it in 2 weeks. Okay, Baldy. I'll trust you. Wouldn't trust some of your pals. He sped home on his new bicycle, then leaned it against the side of the garage and went into the house. His mother and father congratulated him on his latest report card, and he told them about the contest. His mother smiled with pride, and his father wondered, how did we ever come to have such a brilliant child? Still, you'd never know it to talk to him. Baldy sat in his room looking at the bottle of ink. Well, here goes for the prize short story. He opened the bottle and dipped the pen in. The words came easily. He covered page after page until suddenly he scratched the bottom of the inkwell. The bottle was empty, dry as a bone. He tried to dilute it with water. No soap, or rather no more magic. He scoured the attic for another bottle. Not a chance. He read the story over and over, but he didn't know how to finish it. What was he to do? Well, he'd go outside for a bicycle ride and get a little air. But when he looked by the side of the garage, the bike was gone. It had been stolen. He ran up and down the street. Then he tore over to Gus's. That's your hard luck, said Gus, but you gotta pay me. It's your responsibility. Ask your pa. He couldn't ask his father. How could his father understand? He'd have to explain that he was sure of the $50, and he couldn't unless he told his secret. He'd never do that. So he had to earn $50, quickly. He couldn't get that big a job. Cutting lawns didn't pay enough. No, there was only one thing to do. He tore the unfinished story to shreds and threw it in the wastepaper basket. I just have to win that prize by myself. Oh, gee, I can't write. What'll I write about? He was sitting at his desk. The clock on the mantel ticked loudly. He looked morosely out the window. Suddenly the street lights went on, and with a light in the lamppost, an idea came to him. Why, I'll write about a man who became famous for something he didn't do, like writing a wonderful book. Say he just found the manuscript in the street. He's very famous then and very rich, only he isn't happy because, well, it's on his conscience all the time that somebody else wrote the book. So finally he confesses. Then he feels better, and he's poor again, only he doesn't mind it. That's what I'll write about. He took out his pen, dipped it in ordinary ink, and began to write. This was hard work. The words didn't come so easily. Beads of sweat stood out on his face. He didn't want to sit there. He stood up and paced the room. He kept wanting to give up, but he knew he had to have those $50. He worked and worked. At last it was finished, and guess what time it was? The light in the lamppost had already faded. It was morning. Baldy ate a tremendous breakfast and dashed off to school. Now he had to wait for the results of the contest. They were supposed to announce the winner on Monday, and Gus promised not to speak to his father about the money until after that. Monday was the all-important day. Baldy didn't sleep a wink on Sunday night. Monday he was up at dawn. I gotta get out of the house, Ma. His mother sighed. I never in all my days saw a child so anxious to go to school. Now you can't leave until 8:30. Sit still. Have a glass of milk. I can't eat, Ma. Don't make me. His father winked at his mother. Just as Baldy was leaving, the phone rang. It was Gus. Baldy, I guess you'll be glad to hear that I got my bike back. A friend of mine found it a mile out of town, so you don't owe me anything. Guess that's a load off your mind. It sure is. Have you the $50? Do you still want the bike? No, I don't. Baldy heaved a sigh. I wish I could buy it, but you'd better forget it. Thanks. Now he wasn't in such a hurry. He'd never win the prize. Should have known he was too dumb. He shuffled his feet in the pebbles as he neared the school. Miss Fitch was standing on the steps. I want to be the first to congratulate you, Theobald. You've been awarded the first prize, $50. I was amazed. This was so different from your other compositions, but very beautifully written. Baldy's stomach turned somersaults of joy. Thanks, Miss Fitch. Have you got a nickel? I got to make a call. You may use my phone. I suppose you want to phone home and tell the proud parents. First he called Gus to say that he wanted the bike after all. Gee, Baldy, I'm sorry. I just sold it. I wish I'd known. Baldy could have cried, but he didn't. He phoned home. I'd better let them know. Gee, I wanted that bike. His father answered. I heard about it last night, only I promised not to tell you. Congratulations, son. I'm giving you a little surprise. A bicycle with 3 gear shifts. Bought it from a man named Gus.